In this video, we're looking at expanding brackets. Here are two brackets, and they're being multiplied because in between the brackets here, there's nothing written. So this really means x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 3. So this bracket here is multiplied by that bracket here. And it means everything in this bracket, and there are two terms, the x term and the minus 3 term, have to be multiplied by everything in the second bracket, the x and the plus 3 term. How do you remember not to miss any of these is to do it like this. Start with the first term, the x, multiplied by the first term in the second bracket, the x. Then take the x and multiply it by the next one, which happens to be the 3 and is the last term. You keep going till this first term here has multiplied by each term in the second bracket. So there's two of them, so I've got two red lines to show that. Then I take the second term in the first bracket, the minus 3, and I multiply it by x and plus 3. That way we don't miss any. Now, there are things like FOIL that people use to help remember what to do, but this way is much better because sometimes the brackets have more than two terms in them, and in that case it's much easier to do it this way. So let's do that. I'm going to multiply x by x. Then I'm going to multiply x by 3x, or by 3, sorry, I get 3x. So this is the answer to x times x. This is the answer to x times plus 3. Now I'm going to multiply these terms. So let's start off with minus 3 multiplied by x. That's going to give me minus 3x. And minus 3 times plus 3 is minus 9. So minus 3 times x is minus 3x. Minus 3 multiplied by plus 3 is minus 9, because a negative and a positive make a negative, and the same for this one. Then you try to simplify terms. Now xx is really x squared, and 3x and minus 3x can be added or subtracted because they're like. They have the same letter. X squared cannot be added or subtracted to x because the letter is different. X squared means xx, which is not the same as x. So in the second part, the 3x and the minus 3x actually make 0 because they're exactly opposite of each other. You add 3, you lose 3, you're back to 0. So all that's left is the minus 9. So when I expand the brackets, x plus 3 multiplied by x, or x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 3, I get x squared minus 9. In this next example, it's a little bit more complicated because we've got two terms in the first bracket being multiplied by three terms in the second bracket. An ax, a 3 in the first bracket, an x, a minus or negative x, and a plus 5 in the second bracket. So when I multiply, I'm going to multiply ax by a, ax by minus x, ax by 5. And then I'm going to multiply 3 by a, 3 by negative x, 3 by 5. So let's do that. Ax times x is a squared x. And the reason it's a squared is because there's an a here and an a there, and when you multiply them, that's two a's multiplied together, which is a squared. The next part is ax times minus x, which gives me minus ax squared. This time I've got an x here and an x there, so that's why I get x squared. There's an a, and a negative and a positive make a negative. The next one is ax times 5. So that's going to be 5ax. Now just a reminder, when you're doing ax times 5, you could write ax5. But in maths, because these are all multiplied, we always put the number first and then go in alphabetical order. So it's much better to write it as 5ax than ax5. So now I've done these three multiplications. I now need to do the next three multiplications because I haven't done them all. To expand, you need to make sure you don't miss any. So 3 times a will be 3a. And 3 times minus x will be negative 3x, because there's a negative and a positive, makes a negative. Then I've got 3 times positive 5, positive 3 times positive 5, which is positive 15. Let's see if there's anything I can cancel. This is an ax term. This one looks similar, but it doesn't have a squared for the a, it has a squared for the x, so that's different. This means aax, this means axx, so can't put those together. Ax, again, is not the same as these two. There's no squares. This is just a, so it's obviously different. There's no x's. This is just x, and that's just a number. So I can't actually combine any of those. There are no like terms to add or subtract. In this next example, you notice that there are 3 terms in the first bracket. So I'm going to need to multiply x by 2, x by x, x by 2. Then I'm going to need to multiply negative 3 by x and negative 3 by 2. And then I'm going to need to multiply s by x and s by 2. So let's have a look. X times x is going to be x squared. X times 2 is going to be 2x. Could write x2, but 2x is better. Negative 3 by x is going to be negative 3x. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, because I've got 3 2s are 6, and a positive and a negative make a negative. In the next one, I finished the x's, I finished the minus 3's, now up to s. S times x is just sx, and they're both positive, so positive sx. S times 2 is s2, or better to write it 2s. Let's have a look and see if there's any like terms. Well, I've got an x squared and no other x squareds. I've got an x, oh, there's another x, so I've got 2 of them and it's negative 3 of them, and that's all of those. So I can put these two together. So I can actually combine these two. There are no other just x's. This one is sx, that's different letters. In fact, if I look at it, that's a constant, it's the only constant. That's sx, that's the only sx, and that's the only s. So the only part that we can actually simplify is the x's. So x squared stays the same. 2x minus 3x is minus x. Positive 2 and minus 3 is minus 1. There's really a 1 here. We don't bother writing it when there's a 1. Then if I look at the next part, minus 6 plus 6x plus 2s, can't add or subtract any of those together because the letters are not like. So that's the best answer we can do. It's now expanded. Now just while I've got this one with you, just to make sure you don't miss any, you can see here there were 6 terms. There are 3 terms here and 2 terms here. 3 times 2 equals 6. So I can expect 6 terms in my answer. And I had 6 terms here, but when I simplified it or combined the like terms, I ended up with less, but there were 6 here. For this example, you'll notice that there's some brackets with multiplication between them, even though it's not shown, and we need to multiply that out, and then we can combine these other terms on the end, the plus 2x and the minus x squared. So let's start off multiplying the brackets. So we're going to do x times x and x times minus plus 2, and then minus 3 times x and minus 3 times 2. So x times x gives me x squared, x times 2 gives me 2x, minus 3 times x gives me minus 3x, minus 3 times 2 gives me minus 6, and we've still got the 2x and the minus x squared that we haven't used yet. They're still there. Look for like terms. Oh, there's an x squared there and there's 1 there. So they can actually just subtract away and end up with nothing. So that now if I look also at the x's, there's a 2x, a minus 3x and a 2x. So 2 minus 3 is minus 1, plus 2 is plus 1. So all I've got so far is x. And I've used that, and I've used that, and I've used that. So all that's left is the minus 6. So the whole answer for all of this complicated looking thing up here is that this expression is worth the same as that. If I substitute a value in here for x and work out the answer, I'll get the same answer if I substitute a value of x in here.